It goes without saying that for any series, whether it be a comic, manga, anime, regular TV show, or a movie, there's always going to be some sort of initial draft or pilot that ends up being the blueprint for what the future of a series or even a movie can in fact be. And with manga, it's always a one-shot or a pilot chapter that initially gives us the baseline opening concept for what could be explored for a full potential series that magazines and companies can look at and just approve it or not. And then there will be significant changes as it begins entering serialization. It's happened with multiple series, like the Big Three, for example, with a multitude of different changes to how these characters acted, the lore, etc., even their powers and baseline origin stories. But Seven Deadly Sins does have its own one-shot that's available to the public, and I've covered it already on the channel, which is the one-shot of the series. I'll have it in the link in the title card up above if you want to hear my thoughts and recap of it. But I said how much I actually enjoyed that one-shot and how there is significant difference primarily with Meliodas and Elizabeth in how they're presented, the main weapon, and even the main base for the Seven Deadly Sins that would happen to be in the series. And right now, I have just recently got back at doing my Seven Deadly Sins reread, so I can do a retrospective sense of videos for you guys. And something I came along with these volumes and even the community was the reveal of the initial concept designs for the remaining members of the Seven Deadly Sins. We already got the initial designs and concepts for Meliodas and Elizabeth because they were in the one-shot, but here we have the remaining 6 members of the Seven Deadly Sins. And it's not just their initial designs, but it's also their flat-out names, and even concepts and personalities are relatively different for the majority of the time to what they would inevitably become in the mainline series. And so that's what I'm going to go over with you guys today. The baseline original design and the initial concept for these characters that Nagba had in mind for the Sins before it was picked up by Weekly Shonen Magazine and became a series, and thus he made the significant amount of changes to what would inevitably be the final versions of the Sin. Before we jump into this interesting video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. If the timing is right, this video will be out either during a break week for the chapter, since it will be in August, or it'll be while I am away on vacation and won't be able to cover the latest chapter. So this will be out on a Wednesday or Thursday, depending. If it's at a time where a new chapter's out and you're wondering why I'm not covering the chapter, it's because at this point I am away on vacation and I'll probably cover it when I come back with a different new chapter. And if you haven't already, if you like comics, don't forget to check out my second channel, GW Comics, where I'm covering, well, American comic books. Right now, I'm building up a couple of videos for Absolute DC, whether it be reviews and discussions, but I'm also planning to do more videos outside of DC and Marvel. I got stuff planned as I'm going to read the Massiveverse comics, which will be like Radiant Black and Rogue Sun and everything of the like, so I want to do videos for those as well. The second channel is a passion project, and I would really appreciate if you guys went over to subscribe and show some support. Now then, with all that out of the way, let's get to why you clicked onto this video. So let's just start with a fan favorite character and probably one of the poster marks of Seven Deadly Sins, and that is Bond's initial design, also known as Holy Knight, Treacherous Knight Bond, and he was still originally going to be the Fox Sin of Greed. But if you look and pay attention to his initial concept design, you'll see how blatantly obvious that he looks like what is now Lancelot, down to what the baseline clothing, at least at the shoulder width of the design would look like, and even the hairstyle. So he probably would have been blonde as well. And he also looks like he would have been a teenager. And according to what Nakba said about the Holy Knight Bond, he said he was going to be very different from the Bond that ended up in the story, with a personality that was hard to rile up. He didn't talk much, also wore a poker face, and because he was a Holy Knight, it felt like he was more like the Gowther we know, if anything. He seemed much more refined and classy than the Bond we know now. So, basically, this was just straight up going to be Lancelot, pretty much. The poker face, having a bit more serious demeanor. Granted, mainline Lancelot has a lot of comedic moments and will basically let his guard down and smile a lot more, but he was initially going to make Bond an incredibly serious character, a bit no nonsense, and didn't really socialize much. He was a lot more serious than anything else and was more classy and refined. So already a huge departure to what would have been the relatively rude, wanting to take what he wants, very open in terms of what he wants and wants to do Bond with a very upfront fighting style. So yeah, that's the initial Bond would have been. He would have basically been a bit more of a much more serious Lancelot, based off of what Nakba gave us, and he would have had a Gowthunder's personality more or less. So lucky we got that change, essentially, for at least the personality, because the Bond we have now, a hell of a lot more fun. And there's a reason why basically almost everybody in the fan base loves him to death. Next up, we got who was not going to be the king of the fairies, but the prince of the fairy folk, Jihan, who would inevitably become, well, king. And he wasn't going to be the grisly son of sloth. He was actually going to be the lion sin of pride. Yeah, the initial concept for King Jihan, if I pronounced that correctly, was going to be the sin of pride for the fairy folk, and his design is insanely different. I can't pinpoint what character he's reminding me of with the initial design, but he's got messy hair, looks like he might have some sort of gauntlet or something, or wrist thing on his arm, but yeah, he's the fairy prince. Real name would still end up being Harlequin anyway, with Jihan being a pseudonym just like King would be, well, King's name. And Nakba goes on to say, his sin was going to be pride, which made him an annoying peak of a prince. But what makes him most different of all was what he transformed into. Not an old fat guy, but a pudgy little baby. So, based off of that little bit of design, and a little bit of concept that Nakba had in mind for what King would have become, Jihan would have been an arrogant, annoying type of arrogant prince. Basically snobby royalty, if I'm getting from this. Just high and mighty, I'm better than all of you at anything, yada yada yada. But in the fact that he transforms into a pudgy baby would show that maybe if his pride is shattered or doesn't get what he wants, he'll just turn into that pudgy baby and just throw a goddamn tantrum, which probably goes into what the annoying aspect of what he would end up being would be. So that would be kind of hilarious. I am kind of glad we got the king that we have now, but I can't help but be curious as to what Jihan's character would eventually be, and if we would find him annoying or if we would end up growing to like him, because he's definitely a different type of arrogant and prideful than Escanor. And I wonder how the romance with Diane would be if that is actually like what would happen still in the mainline series. Speaking of Diane, we're going to look at female warrior of the giant race, Diane, the sin of envy, the snake. And she would still be the exact same sin no matter what, but her initial concept design is vastly different. She wasn't going to be as tall, but she has more ruffled up hair with a gauntlet and some larger boots. It's an interesting looking design. It's not the same as the Diane we have now. It's still an interesting design, looks more tomboyish if anything. And what Nakba said was Diane was going to have a disheveled hair like Armin, I guess referring to Attack on Titan, because I think at this point was when Attack on Titan just started running its manga, if I'm being honest, or around the middle of the first arc. Rather than her two pigtails, and her stature was also going to be a little smaller than she ended up being the series. She would still have a crush on Meliodas, but was more hot-cold about it. So, more or less, Diane's main personality quirk at the beginning with her crush on Meliodas being overly affectionate should probably, based off this, fall more into the tsundere aspect. If she's being like hot cold or like showing her affection but not showing her affection, she might have been more of a tsundere in this essence. And envy would still kind of suit her, because that's how a lot of tsunderes tend to act. Very hot, very cold, very affectionate at some points, but also coming off as a jerk and incredibly overbearing, I guess. And maybe a little annoying. I don't know where this would have gone. It probably would have had a bit more comedy, but like, I'm very hit or miss when it comes to seeing the tsundere trope in anime and manga. So I think I prefer the Diane we have now at the bare minimum, but there's still a lot to consider on what we would have gotten with this version of Diane. The next member of the Seven Deadly Sins initial concepts is the bear sin of sloth, Jima. The warlock. His very existence is denied. Yeah, if you can't tell based off the initial concept designs for all these characters, the warlock Jima, he would have been Gowther. So, first off, this basic design looks cool as shit, man. This looks so incredibly badass. A part of me just wants to see this redone in the mainline series. Maybe for another Night of the Round Table, for all we know. Another character in Four Knights, or maybe another elite member of Arthur's Knights, or something like whatever. Because, like, this initial concept design looks so much cooler. I mean, come on. I kind of wish Gowther's initial armor at the bare minimum looked like this. But let's see what Nakba had to say about the Warlock Jima. This was actually Gowther's prototype. He was going to be one of the deadly sins with the role of secretly guarding Meliodas. Before I knew it, I turned him into a giant clad in armor, and since I figured that'd be sort of boring, I opted for him to be a lean glasses wearing kid instead. Nakba, as much as I am enjoying Gowther mainly in Four Knights of the Apocalypse right now, a part of me kinda wishes that we got Jima, or at least this would have been the armor for Gowther, but he just looks so much cooler. I get the idea of thinking that he would be boring, and I kind of like the comment that comes out of the emotionless and curious on emotions Gowther that we got, mainly because it fed into some pretty comedic interactions with the rest of the sins. But the thing I want to really harp into, something that I kind of think would have been a very interesting thing was Jima being the guy secretly guarding Meliodas. Now, in the initial one-shot, we still aren't sure if the Sins did actually try to overthrow the kingdom or not. Because in the mainline series, they didn't. They were framed. But there was still that underlying mystery, at least in the prototype chapter, that it could have been the case. And there doesn't seem to be any indication that it was either or. But the idea of a character that was secretly monitoring and guarding Meliodas is interesting, perhaps from more of the initial threats, or some other aspects of the world that probably got scrapped or changed for the mainline series. Who knows? But just that initial concept does sound interesting. Why would Jima, if the Sins were scattered to the wind, would want to guard Meliodas? Now, it could be because since Gowther has like mental magic and stuff like that, maybe it's to make sure that if we still had Meliodas' like rage problem and losing control with his demon powers, if he would still be a demon in the initial concept of Seven Deadly Sins, that perhaps Jima would have been able to calm down Meliodas from a distance to make sure he wouldn't lose control. That's something I kind of like to see, and that's also something that we actually get to see in Seven Deadly Sins, and even in a prequel chapter that I'm not sure if it's going to release at the right before this video, or right after this video, the week after. In the Seven Deadly Sins prequel chapters where they fought these vampires Venom Burrow, that's how they kind of knocked out Escanor whenever he would go the one mode, because it would be hard to contain him at that point and keep him under control. So if Gowther's arrows and mind powers could like knock out or calm down Escanor, then yeah, it would work on Meliodas if we take the same logic. But yeah, that just seems like a very interesting thing as to guarding Meliodas from maybe his own rageful outbursts to prevent them, or from some underlying force that might be trying to get to Meliodas. I don't know. That is the part that seems interesting. Then the fact that Gowther's initial design as Warlock Jima just looks so goddamn cool. Again, I want this design to be revisited in the mainline series. But let's move on to the next sin. Another fan favorite. Merlin's initial design, Mirrodin, the boar sin of gluttony, the sorceress. Now, apparently from what I heard and saw, Mirrodin is just another pronunciation for Merlin. So her name probably was just going to be like this, but it would still be Merlin in Arthurian legend. But either way, her initial design doesn't look all too different, but she does wear a pair of glasses, so that's already a pretty cool addition to Merlin's design. Now to what Nakaba said about Merlin's initial design. I'm sure you can already tell, but this is Merlin's prototype. Apparently her name in Welsh is Mirrodin. Okay, so that's where I read it from. I am so stupid, I should have double checked. I'm keeping this in there because I know you guys like to laugh when I screw up or get things wrong, because let's be honest, I would too. But Nakaba also said, do you see elements of Gowther in her? I hadn't been drawing any mature ladies recently, though I really do like them best. So first off, the glasses are definitely something that was just thrown onto Gowther, so okay, that's one thing. We don't get anything into what Merlin's character would have been like from this initial concept design. Based on the comments, probably would have been the exact same as Merlin. So yeah, probably would have been the exact same design. And he's basically laying in another one of his like preferences, despite what we've seen in Seven Deadly Sins and Four Knights to some aspects. Mainly in Four Knights of the Apocalypse we see, Nakaba really likes to draw them mature ladies. That's a fact with how he draws them in Four Knights of the Apocalypse, I'm just saying. So yeah, he admitted to this very early on in his career. But last but certainly not least, the character that was in the thumbnail of this video, most likely, Escanor's initial design, admired by the sun. But Escanor would have been the goat sin of lust. Yeah, we were basically going to be getting Escanor as the Sin of Lust, so how that would have planned out, I don't know, but let's see what Nakaba had to say. This is the prototype for the Deadly Sin who has yet to make his appearance. He's ripped, and with a figure like that, plus being the Sin of Lust, you just know he's a horn dog. I'm sure he'll show up in the story soon enough, but keep in mind, he won't actually look like that, so don't worry. That's it. All he really has to comment on is the fact that he was going to be the Sin of Lust, and that he was, with his initial design, going to be a horn dog. Now, since he had the subtitle of A Matter About a Sun, then yeah, he was most definitely going to have sunshine, obviously. That part wasn't going to change. The only part that was going to change, it was maybe his initial personality. So, he probably would have been a lot of, definitely a horn dog, womanizer. It just, while I prefer, and I'm glad we got the Escanor we have right now, a part of me wants to see what a horn dog, lady killer Escanor would have been. It's something that I'm curious about, because for all I know, Escanor could have been ripped the entire time, and Sunshine probably wasn't giving him a day and night form. He was just base ripped and swole and was going for ladies, all I know. But yeah, those are the initial designs for the remaining members of the 7 Deadly Sins. What do you think? Were these cool concepts and designs? Are you glad we got the designs we have now? Are there any designs and concepts for these characters that you probably would have wished to see if Nakaba stuck to his guns to their initial designs? Let me know in the comments section down below. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. With all that said and done, hope you all have an awesome day.